The key to increasing your speed is to decrease the amount of steps it takes you to get from point A to point B. As an example, we're going to use Zarnell Hughes and Tyson Gay. Zarnell Hughes is 6'3", and Tyson Gay is 5'11", and they both covered 100 meters in 45 steps. The main difference is that Zarnell Hughes was 983 for his time, where Tyson Gay ran 969. And for reference, a lot of, if you go to like a high school meet, a lot of those guys are running 49 to 50 steps in 100 meters that are running 11.8 or 12 seconds, somewhere in there. It's going to be closer to, again, 50 steps. So a key part of you being able to run fast is the amount of distance you're able to cover. Usain Bolt, when he ran this 9:58, he was able to do that in 41 steps at 6'5". So the question then becomes, how do you increase the amount of distance that you're covering per step to be able to run faster? And this is where really the secret lies to being able to run fast, is being able to understand what can you do within your running to make it so then you can better perfect your range of motion, where you're not bounding or skipping as you're running, and you still are able to maintain a quick foot contact and very fast turnover. But really what it all comes down to is force production. How much ground force are you able to create makes it so then you can pick up more distance per step. However, it's not just as simple as just being able to stomp the ground with a lot of force to be able to run fast. Obviously, you have to be able to propel yourself forward while also generating a lot of force into the ground, which means that your foot strike has to be very quick and very efficient. You can't be wasting a lot of time on the ground, and you have to be very, very specific on how you are pushing off the ground to make it so you're able to cover distance as well as get height, and then be able to cycle the leg quickly to be able to generate more force in the ground. So how do you do that? Well, that's where having a speed coach can be very beneficial. And this is what I do, is I go over people's sprinting mechanics and look at video to be able to analyze what is it that you can really work on to be able to better understand what within your leg cycle or within your foot strike you need to improve, or in order to generate the most amount of force as possible. And I say that because the more personalized this is, or the more specific to your individual issues this is, then the easier it will be for you to be able to understand. But within this video, we're going to go over, I think, 3 key parts of force production to make it so then you can increase your speed, or at least start to work on increasing your speed. And if you apply this information to your running form, you should be able to increase the distance that you're covering per step, which will make it so then you can run faster. So the first one goes into timing and what should be happening at certain points of the sprint that makes it so then you could generate the most amount of forward force as possible. And so we can see Usain Bolt here, like we said, 41 steps in 100 meters, foot is coming off the ground. What we want to be able to do is have this opposite knee in maximum height. I think that ends up being really important to be able to, again, get more vertical off the ground, but also make it so then we can create as much length or as much separation within the thighs. And also when this is happening, we do want to have a good amount of separation within the elbows or within the hands to make it so then we can be very quick in changing which hand is forward, which hand is back. As his foot's coming off the ground, he's at max height with the knee, and he has plenty of range within the arms. And then from there, his knee starts to lower as he's extending with the foot out in front and then striking the ground. I think another important thing, and this ends up being more of a turnover, because when you see some people, when they're trying to implement this, they're almost trying to like bound too much. And to prevent yourself from bounding, what you want to be able to achieve is, as one foot striking the ground, the other side knee wants to be past the knee that of the foot that's striking the ground, or the knee of the leg that's striking the ground. So you can see how his knees are even, essentially. We'll see a lot of people who will have the knee further back. You have to have very fast moving legs in order to have a large amount of speed. And so just for context, when you watch him actually run here with the timing, we want to be able to see his leg from the toe off go into this full extension. This is an important part of being able to generate more force into the ground and the right type of force. You can see he's not going from here and just going straight down, but he's actually extending the leg out in front, getting the toe up, and then pulling that foot back. So this ends up being a big part of not only generating large amounts of force in the ground. That's what we're seeing here, is actually how much force in pounds he's generating into the ground. Over 1,000 pounds of force as that right foot striking the ground there. And a lot of that has to do with how he's pulling that leg back, and also the amount of height he's getting prior to the foot strike. So you can see right here, this is where his foot's leaving the ground. So he's off the ground this whole time, he's covering a lot of distance with his both his legs in the air, and then that momentum leads to a strong foot strike. So that's number one. And we can see as he's doing this, he's very stiff within the hip, within the knee, and even within the ankle. We can't be loose as you are striking the ground. Again, we're not trying to stomp the ground. He's not going straight downwards. He's really pulling back and behind. And the better you can understand how to do that, how to get the toe up and be stiff within the ankle during foot strike, then the better and faster you're going to be. And also the more amount of force you're going to be able to generate in the ground. You can see really all these sprinters are doing the same thing when it comes to getting the leg out in front and then pulling back as they're striking the ground. So this is something that all fast people do, not just Usain Bolt. And the last thing before we'll go on to number two is make sure that as you're striking the ground, you're landing with your toe off in mind. So you don't want to end up hitting the ground and then reacting to the foot strike. You want to already be transitioning off the ground as your foot is striking the ground to make it so you have as much forward weight as possible. See, a lot of people make the mistake of really allowing this heel to drop down or getting stuck with that heel down on the ground, which makes it so then when they push off, they don't get as much vertical force. A key part of what makes it so he's able to generate so much force in the ground is he's getting very vertical very quickly with that heel. So then he could push himself upwards, where if his heel ends up getting too far back behind, he won't be able to get that same type of vertical push off of the ground. Which leads us into number two, which is the height of the foot. You can see as his foot's coming off the ground, the more height you can get, then the more amount of momentum you're going to have to be able to generate large amounts of force into the ground, especially when it comes to frontside mechanics. We'll see a lot of people get pretty high with the foot behind in backside mechanics, and that is important. We'll also see people that make the mistake of not generating nearly as much force in the ground because their feet are too low behind. But really what the separation here is with very fast people is how much height they're able to have with the foot out in front of them. The more height you can get with your foot, with your toe, then the more amount of force you're going to be able to generate into the ground. And this is something that applies to all phases. You need to be able to get your toe up, foot up in front in acceleration during your drive phase, during your top end speed, to make it so then you could generate more and larger amounts of force on each one of your steps. And then number three is going to be getting a forward push. We already talked a little bit about being able to get that vertical action with the legs to make it so we can get very upwards here. But as the foot is coming off the ground, what is a critical component here is you're pushing yourself forward as that foot's leaving the ground. So what we'll commonly see, the people that are struggling with this concept, is the knee will be extended before the foot is coming off the ground. Okay, but in order to get a great forward push, in order to cover a lot of distance, what you have to be doing is pushing your foot into extension. So you push your leg, push your knee forward to make it so then we can get as much of our momentum going this way, as opposed to if our leg ends up being extended again, now we're going to end up getting more here or maybe even more here. That's what I'll commonly see with a lot of people that, again, are struggling with this. They'll end up going much further back with the foot. So the quicker and stronger a forward pusher you get, the more distance you're going to be able to cover. The perfect combination of both the forward push with the foot height will lead to the fastest times. If you look at somebody like Flojo, who ran 10:49, the world record, and you're trying to emphasize only distance, but when you're sprinting, then the amount of time spent on the ground has to be very, very quick, which is why having stiff ankles and strong feet is critical to be able to improve your speed. So some of you might be saying, what about increasing the strength or getting in the weight room? How would that increase the speed or increase the amount of distance per step? And I definitely believe that that can have a positive impact on your running, being able to have more strength within the glutes and the back and your hip flexors and all that type of good stuff. But I've never seen anybody just by squatting more increase or improve their running mechanics. And so a lot of times people are reaching out to me because they want to be able to specifically address some type of mechanical flaw that is happening. And there's definitely drills or different things like that, but it's not going to just get better by deadlifting more, squatting more, doing something within the weight room. You have to be able to work on the quality of your sprinting form in order to make it so you're going to be able to cover more distance. A lot of times it ends up being much more specific to things within the ankle, stiffness within the ankle, some plyometrics, some jumping, things like that could be very beneficial. But again, that's not going to immediately just improve your sprinting form. You have to be able to work on the technique and be very specific when you're practicing, and very focused when you're practicing on addressing these particular issues. So thanks for watching. If you want to find out a little bit more about what we do, you can check out the description down below. And I hope this helps. We'll talk to you soon.